estimating calculations. One reason to use approximation is to check calculations. As often happens, mistakes can be made when calculating, and sometimes ridiculous answers are given. So estimation allows you to check if your answer is in the sensible ballpark figure area. So let's have a look at this. So an example is to estimate the value of 23 times 67. Now, when it has estimate, it's not asking you to actually work out the exact value of this, but to give an estimate for it. So the first thing you need to do is to round these figures to one significant place. So 23 becomes 20 and 67 becomes 70. And it's easier to do the multiplication of 20 and 70 compared with 23 and 67. So 20 times 70 equals 1,400. Therefore, 23, the original figures, 23 times 67 doesn't equal 1,400 because this is just an estimate, but it's roughly equal to. And the sign for roughly equal to looks like the equal sign. It's a little bit difficult to do with the pen here, but as you know, an equal sign looks like that, whereas an approximate sign is like a wavy equal sign. So sometimes I'll be able to do this. As I say, it's just a little bit difficult in this space here. Let's look at another example. So we're asked to estimate 423 minus 98 divided by 16.4. Now I'm sure you'll agree that this looks a little bit of a complicated figure to work out. And in this question we're asked to estimate it. So we start off with the actual figures, the original figures, and then we round them. So 423 becomes 400, 98 becomes 100, and 16.4 becomes 20. Now, we do the estimation using these figures, and you can see that these look a lot more friendly to work out than those. So this would equal 300 over 20. The 300 comes from 400 minus 100, which is obviously 300, and then 20 carries over. And then 300 over 20, we can strike out one of the zeros at the top and one of the zeros at the bottom, and this gives 30 over 2, and 30 over 2 equals 15. So our answer to estimate this value would be, it's roughly equal to, with these curly equal signs, which I can't do very well, equals 15. Now it'd be good if you could have a go and see if you can work out these values. So the first is the value of 58.4 divided by 2.79 brackets minus 9.8, and 68.7 minus 9.9 divided by 2.77. In this sort of state they look a bit complicated, but if you follow the instructions I gave above of rounding the figures and see how you get on. So put the video on pause and press play when you're ready. So hopefully you've had a go at working these out. So let's do the first iteration. These are the the raw values. And now, instead of using them, let's work on the rounded values. So 58.4, that's pretty close to 60. So we'll call that 60. Oops. Divided by, now 2.79, what number is that close to? Well, it's close to 3. And remember to put in the brackets, minus 9.8. And again, what value could we round that to? And the closest would be 10. So this equation looks a lot friendlier than that. Now, do you remember from BIDMAS, you've got to do the brackets first. So let's do whatever's in the bracket. And what's in the bracket is 60 divided by 3. So how many times does 3 go into 60? Well, that's quite easy, isn't it? Because that's 20 minus 10, which gives a value of 10. So we can then say, what is the estimated value of this? Well, we can say, if we put these curly brackets there, it equals 10. If you actually did that calculation, the answer would come to something like 11.1, but it doesn't want the exact calculation. It just wants the estimate. And let's see, how did you get on with this? So 68.7, that sounds like a 70, doesn't it? Minus 9.9, that becomes 10. And this is all divided by 3, if we're going to round. So 70 minus 10 is 60. And 60 divided by 3 equals 20. So the estimated value is 20. So here we could write down 68.7 minus 9.9 divided by 2.77, and then these curly equal signs, 20. Now, only change these values if it asks you to estimate them. If it doesn't say estimate and it just gives you the values to calculate, then you must calculate it to the accurate level. So don't always round up or round down or whatever, but see if it says estimate.